Man, so much stuff happens behind the scenes of the show. We all just found out that Dave has pretty eyeballs. Pretty eyeballs.
Well, you guys
Not
knew I had
eyes.
pretty
No, we knew you
eyeballs.
had pretty eyes. I didn't know you had pretty eyeballs. I feel like
Well,
the
that's a
whole
big part of the eye.
it's a huge
It's a
part.
major part of
Guys,
the eye.
it's time to get serious. Here's the game plan.
Oh no.
Okay,
It's-
we're gonna
Oh,
look
wow.
at the chat to make sure we know how to pronounce everything.
Okay. Check.
And then we're gonna,
no.
if we get into trouble, we're gonna just call Mark Cerny, have him come here, talk for an hour, and by the time people watch it 10 times to understand what all that means, then we'll swap the video.
Excellent. So should we
Okay,
start?
cool.
Should we start the show then?
Let's start the show.
I guess we could.
This is PSVR GamesCast Live, where we film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm sure today has to be one of those days. Otherwise, I don't think we'd be here. Hopefully, you guys would be here either way. My name is Brian Paul from this channel right here, PSVR without Parole. And the guys to my right, the boys, Dave from Dave Station, the VR.
Well, thank you, sir, for that intro. I liked it. A lot of pep, a lot of verve. I don't know
vigor?
what else to say. Vigor, vim. Got a lot of words people don't use very often.
And
Yeah.
that guy on the right-hand side of the screen is AJ from The Underground, PSVR Underground.
What is up, Brian? What is up, Dave? What is up, Game Cats? Good to see all of you on this fine Wednesday. We've got a lot to talk about, and I am super excited, guys.
Oh, God, you're so
I
relaxed.
like already. I'm seeing in the chat, Nick is starting to call us Endgame cats. I like this. Like next gen. This is a good thing.
I like it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, before we get started, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure that if you haven't already, make sure you click the link in the description to join us over on Discord. That's where this conversation and conversations like it happen 24/7. There's been a lot of activity over there. It's also where we, get together and join up for Box VR every single day. It's also where we get some multiplayer meetups going. Lots of developers there to hang out with and chat with as well. And if you want your name on that scroll at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/withoutparolegames. That's all the housekeeping I have. I think we got a lot of news to
Oh,
talk
we're on
about.
Spotify now too, though.
We are on Spotify. There's that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right now, you might be hearing us on Spotify if you're one of the 3 people now who listen to us on Spotify.
Three or
maybe.
4, yeah. I definitely streamlined the introduction because I know we have so much news to talk about. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we should probably dive right into it. That's what a lot of these cats are here to hear. Right?
That is correct, man. First of all, real quick, just want to say thank you to everybody welcoming me back, man. I hated not being here. It seems like every time Moss is the topic, it means that like I can't be on the show for some reason. So we just
I thought
gotta.
that was in your contracts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We also want to give a shout out to Emily Baxter, hashtag the Game Kitten, for the $2 tip. Said, just because I love you guys. We love you too, Emily Baxter.
Why, thank you.
All right, guys. The thing that we're all here to talk about today is pretty big, pretty newsworthy. Last night, I put up a video that basically detailed all of Sony's plans for the PlayStation VR 2, everything that they have gone not public about. So for anybody curious, we've got multiple sources that are confirming this. This isn't rumor, this isn't speculation, this is all legit. When I've got multiple people all saying the exact same thing to me verbatim, it means the story's pretty concrete.
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us. For if you already saw the breaking news report, awesome. We're going to talk a lot about the stuff that we brought up there, but then we're also going to bring up a few new things along the way. Starting with, you guys want to start with the pretty basic thing, the fact that Sony is calling this thing the NGVR for next gen VR. They're not committing to PSVR 2 yet. What do we feel about that?
I hope they don't stick with it, but I don't think they will. I mean, Project Morpheus wasn't Project Morpheus at the end of the day. It's, PSVR. So I hope they stick with that solid branding. People know what it is, PSVR 2. It makes sense. And NGVR, I know it's going to be way better than the other stuff, but it almost sounds like, I don't know, like next gen. It sounds like too cool for school.
I like it. Yeah. I like it. I like the hashtag too. The hashtag NGVR. It looks really cool to write. But yeah, I mean, they really like to build the suspense for this, right? I think they did the same thing for PS5. Now there is a possibility that it's not just called PSVR2. I've seen a couple people that wouldn't mind it being called like PS5 VR or something, or it could be called the PSVR Nathy or something.
Who said
but-
that?
That's some
You're fine.
targeted advertisement right there.
Yeah. Did he pay you to say that?
No, but no. But yeah, I think keep it simple. We've seen what happened with Xbox.
Yep.
You don't even know which Xbox is which anymore, and I think you could really learn from that.
Yeah.
I love this. E-Victory in the chat says, dude, we already know what's going on with the next gen because someone already posted a video about it telling us this stuff, so I'm out. Stop wasting your time listening to these idiots talk about it.
See you
watch
later.
our video, dude. See you later.
Right. That's
easy,
crazy.
bro.
No one else is reporting on this.
stay
I keep looking around the internet going, I wonder where I wonder why no one else is reporting on this. The fact is apparently like no one else is talking about it, which is crazy. Everyone who's reporting on it is just posting our video or stating facts from our video. So thank you for tuning in to hear more about it.
Peace
Love
out.
you guys.
Yeah, later, dude.
So yeah, obviously, we don't need to go on about this. Next gen VR doesn't make any sense because as soon as it's released, it's no longer next gen VR. It's current gen VR, right? It's now the thing. It's not the current future thing. So it's not going to be called that. As we mentioned in the video, they called it next gen portable forever before they finally announced the PlayStation Vita's name. This is just a simple way to call it something. Shout out to Seymour GameCats with a $2 tip. Says GCVR. For the GameCats. GameCats VR. Great name.
There we go.
There you go. I like it.
All right. But let's move on, guys. We don't need to talk about the name all day. And I guess that kind of brings us to the lenses, right? And revealing that they're Fresnel lenses, now that I've learned how to pronounce that properly. Fresnel lenses seem to be pretty divisive out there. There's a lot of positives and negatives. What's the most common positive about Fresnel lenses, guys?
Well, I think from a manufacturing standpoint, it's that you can make them thinner and lighter weight than other lenses and still get generally the same effect that you would out of a heavier, thicker lens. So that always, if you're reducing the weight of the headset, that's always good. And you can reduce the form factor a little bit because it doesn't have to have the space for a bigger lens. So I think that's typically why they go with them, I think.
Well, there was something else. Another thing is, this is going to might be a reoccurring theme, but they mentioned before about when they want to design the next generation VR headset, that they've learned a lot from their mistakes from the first gen. And a big barrier that people had getting into the first gen PSVR was motion sickness. Now, what the Fresnel lenses are supposed to do is they basically eliminate the distortion from when you rotate your eye on its axis. There's like a distortion that can be caused, and that is supposedly one of the causes of motion sickness. So likely, I'm thinking that's going to be the biggest thing, is this is there to decrease the amount of people that get motion sickness, which is just an automatic deal breaker for virtual reality for consumers.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like the big negative that everyone seems to be bringing up, because this is the same type of lens that the Quest uses, is some unintended God rays, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Okay, so since Quest 1 and Quest 2, and the last thing I'm going to do here is sit here and defend everything that Sony has decided to do, right? We don't know everything. We're definitely speculating based on all this stuff that we do know.
You won't know till you put it on and stuff.
You won't know till you put it on. Right, because this is like, these aren't going to be the same Fresnel lenses that we're used to. We're not from the 2 years ago or the year before. These are going to be new lenses that are even thinner and more well designed for a headset that's not coming out for close to another year. So yes, it's definitely something to be concerned about and like to kind of keep an eye on, but until we see how everything plays out in the headset, I'm not terribly concerned yet. Plus,
no, it's not something that I really found a big problem trying out the Quest 2. And also, I did see a couple people mentioning that maybe different IPDs are affected by the lenses. Some have a worse effect and stuff. So, but I imagine that, and we'll probably get to it at some point, there will be like another adjustment for that.
Right. Right, absolutely. I'll give a quick shout out here to Blue Jew, the underground game cat, with a $15 tip. Says, such exciting news. Appreciation for all your work, bringing it to us. Choo choo.
Appreciate you, Blue Jew.
Absolutely. One of the things I did see about Fresnel lenses was that sometimes there's lower contrast and like a lot of the light doesn't get through the way that it's supposed to. And something that we didn't talk about in the breaking news report was that PlayStation VR2 actually has the capability of being 3 times brighter than PlayStation VR1. And so I feel like this is a countermeasure, right? It's like when Sony's saying, "Hey, there are drawbacks to some of the things in the headset, but don't worry, we know ways to counter that stuff." I mean, because at what point have you been playing a PlayStation VR1 game and gone, "This needs to be 3 times brighter"? Like never.
I don't think I have. Yeah.
Never, ever, right? So like, there's a reason for that to be included. So, and it's probably to counter some of the negative effects of some of their decisions.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's the whole basically the design behind the ridges in the lenses is the way that it, shoots the light through and stuff. That's why that whole design dates back from it's like Augustine Fresnel, and it's like they use it in like lighthouses and stuff, and it's like crazy how far back that design actually goes. When you do the research, obviously us being in PSVR land, that news kind of came to us later because we're used to just the regular flat OLED screen kind of deal, not dealing with these. But people that are used Rifts and Quests and stuff were already kind of aware of all this stuff, well aware.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, another divisive thing about this headset is definitely that it's going to be the FOV is going to be 110 degrees. And I think a lot of people out there were hoping it would be a lot higher. Like, oh, next gen has to be 120, 130. Like some of like the freaking wicked high cutting edge headsets out there.
Oh, Reddit have a listing. They were like debating whether the speculation that Digital Foundry the other day, Digital Foundry said that the unleaked specs had some outstanding qualities to them, and like Reddit had like 180. I was like, Jesus, like what are we, chameleon people? No.
Right. Well, and the big problem with getting a huge FOV is that suddenly you're expanding the size of the headset dramatically. And Sony said over and over and over again that they want to make this thing smaller, more compact, more lightweight. And so and so making it like less of a burden on your face means that you're not going to have an FOV that's that high.
Well, and also it won't look as freakish because if you see these high FOV headsets, they're like weird fucking. The Pimax is a freakish thing to put on your face.
Yeah,
right? Part of the adoption issue with VR is like people think it looks silly on their head, and so the better, the smaller, the less ridiculous you make it look, the more people are going to be likely to buy it.
Well, also, yeah, for sure. But also, when the field of view increases, it causes you to have more pixels to have a clearer picture. So it actually affects the resolution. So I was actually expecting 120 for the basic field of view. I know some people are really interested in the tech. They want to see the cool, flashy stuff, but and they want it like the one screen. You know what I mean? Like they wanted like one long screen connected or something. But I've never, if you look back at the history of PlayStation VR, I never once heard anybody complaining about the field of view. I never had any complaints about it. So a slight increase is really good. I did want it to be increased. And like I said, maybe would have wanted more like 120, but I am totally okay with this. I was fine with it before, and a slight increase could make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, if it's better than the Index, it shouldn't be controversial. Yeah, like, that's the top of the line one right now. And if that's, if it's better than that by a couple,
it's hit or miss when it comes to being better than the Index because they're all.
Well, in terms of the FOV, didn't you say, Brian, it was like a little bit?
It gets all wishy-washy because the vertical and horizontal FOV.
Yeah, I was doing research at 5 a.m. by the way, guys, trying to make this trying to make it all seem like easily digestible and stuff. And so I was doing quick research and copying and pasting facts and stuff, trying to really get across the point. And I think maybe I didn't get the Index right. I think the Vive is is probably what I meant to reference instead. But this is 10% more, or 10 degrees more, 10% and 10 degrees more than PlayStation VR1, right? So it's an increase. And I'm happy about that. it's the Quest 2 is 89 degrees. And so like if that's what you're
Right.
using big time, then this is 21 degrees more than that. You know, it's like this is a massive jump. Dave, what's up?
So the chat immediately told us the right thing, which I knew they would do.
Yes.
Everyone's saying index is 130 degrees, so it is
Right.
not higher than
Oh,
the index.
right.
Mr. GameCat says,
lower.
so that video is all BS, Brian.
Yeah. I got the fact about the index wrong. So everything is
It's
just
all, throw it out the window.
Yep, I'll just
This
pretend
is
it didn't
all-
happen, guys.
This is all
You can all go
Lethal
back
Weasel-
to your regular day.
Lethal Weasel
yeah.
West from Virtual Strangers, our buddy over there. He also says something about the Fresnel lenses, that they are more durable, and that's something that I saw a lot of pictures posted all the time on Reddit or stuff. Was like scratched lenses and stuff. So that is one thing that could save a couple headsets out there. I know he says he doesn't like the glare and God rays with them, which is the one big complaint that we hear about him all the time. But just another little tidbit on the lens there.
I'll say
durability is good.
if it's anything like the Quest lenses, like, yeah, for sure. Like Sony, when you get the thing, they're like, be very specific about what you touch the lenses with. If you touch the lenses with the wrong thing, you will
Use
damage
only
them permanent.
use
Yes.
only the lens cleaner.
The Quest,
cloth.
I wipe that shit off with my shirt and it's fine. Like I just give it a little wipe. It doesn't matter. It doesn't get scratched. I can't see any permanent damage from treating it just like a normal lens where you just like would wipe it off with your shirt, and it seems fine. So hopefully, it has that level of durability.
All right, guys, next up, I know we got some comments about this, some questions on the breaking news video, so we should probably answer this now. Interpupillary distance, aka IPD, was not discussed in that video, and it has a range of 59 millimeters to 72 millimeters. The PlayStation VR2 headset,
Pretty
right?
big.
Now, that's a pretty big range. So I think it was Matt in the comments was like, my eyes are like strangely far away from each other. Is this going to be a problem? And I was like, I need a picture, sir. I need to see what you are all about. So here's the interesting thing about this, right? On the Quest 1, right? It's a slider, and then on the PlayStation VR 1, you go and take pictures and put little crosshairs in your eyes and stuff, and it's really strange. PlayStation or Sony wasn't specific about how you would adjust this during the summit, but the possibilities here are actually really interesting because as we're going to talk in a second about eye tracking, and so this could be done pretty much automatically by the headset itself. Just goes all set, right? No messing around with sliders. Absolutely. But we don't know for certain. That was just the first thing that came to mind.
It seems like it would make a lot of sense. I mean, anything to ease the entry point, and then also if you have games where people switch the headset around,
Right,
it
if
could
it can automatically
recalibrate.
adjust.
It could recalibrate on the fly. Yeah, because if it's tracking your eyes, it has to know where they are and how far they are apart. So yeah, I mean, that's a
that
really
way
good idea. Actually,
you could pass it around, and without somebody having a big difference in the IPD, it wouldn't be blurry for one person. Everybody could have a kind of equal experience with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess that brings us to screen resolution. Can one of you guys take this away for me? I got one thing to do over here.
Yeah. So the screen resolution is 2000 by 2040 per eye, which brings it about to 4K. It's like right around. I actually think it's like, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's just below. But here's the deal. Most VR games are probably not going to be 4K. I don't think they are, at least at first. I do expect a lot of games to maybe have that feature, maybe have something around that. It would be nice when you have the screen so close to your eyes, every pixel counts twice as much. But when you have to also generate the image twice and stuff, it could be a little bit different, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the interesting thing, we haven't gotten to some of this yet, but my first thought was, okay, even if you have 4K lenses, or not 4K lenses, 4K display stuff, like you said, it won't matter because games won't be able to hit it. But the more that I think about the stuff we're going to talk about later in the show and how they're optimizing it in all these ways, I think that we might see stuff that actually could get close to 4K on the PS5 and VR.
Yeah.
If all these other things fall into place as they are supposed to, I think we could see some really high quality shit out of the PS5 and the PSVR.
Oh, yeah.
What gets me is that like when I play something like Rhythm and Bullets, right, and it's a very simple game, and so like it can really push the resolution and the refresh rate to the max. You put those things up to your face, and it's crystal clear, like everything, like it's just it looks amazing, right? And so I mean, not like from an artistic standpoint, but from a resolution standpoint,
Crisp. It's crisp and it runs well, 120, all that stuff.
And then you play a game like Hitman 3, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this shit was capable. Like the headset was even capable of displaying, resolution like this with such a, amazing kind of like big world with a lot of stuff going on. So the fact is like we're just now kind of seeing how amazing the current headset is. Like, if you play the Frack demo, you have a pretty good understanding of like how crisp and clear things can be with the PlayStation 5 powering the old headset. So like to see the jump from 1080p on PSVR 1 to 4K is going to be remarkable, right? And I don't think anyone's ready for it. I think it's going to be really, really impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I think only people who currently have a high-end PCVR setup, who are not many people I know. I've never tried an Index or a Pimax or, the newest graphics card or anything. I got to run Alex on medium settings to get it to work. Right. So, this is going to be mind blowing for a lot of people who are coming from Quest or PSVR 1, I think, in terms of what this thing can do.
Yeah. The potential is crazy. And we already know of at least one game that already has 4K support that's super sampled, and that's Blood and Truth. That comes from first party studio, London Studio. And that game is already set to be 4K. And then, of course, with the PSVR Gen 1 headset, it's but that just shows you that it can run 4K 90 frames per second. It's running on the PS5 hardware like that. So who knows? Maybe there's more games that could be 4K than we think.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, a lot of people in chat are kind of going along with what I was saying, where the stuff that we're going to talk about in terms of the way these games are going to be done from a performance standpoint, the way they work on the system and all the features that kind of go into helping optimize, the best experience for it. Everybody in chat's like, yep, we could probably do games that look close to 4K. I think that's probably reasonable. And some of you guys sound knowledgeable, like more knowledgeable than I am even. So
speaking of the chat, I do want to get a couple tips here because we're falling behind. Starting with Darth Vader, the Game Cat, with a $5 tip says, could this be the end of flat screen Vader? Vader, VR Vader. Sorry, I'll see myself out. Hopefully, Vader. Hopefully you come back to the dark side and play some VR games with us. Nibble the Game Cat with the €5 says, wondering if eye tracking could help people with bad eyesight. Keep up the awesome work, guys. That is a good question for somebody who knows far more about this than I do. This is help somebody with bad eyesight. I don't know. It's a great question. We also want to give a shout out to Miles Dyer with £5 saying, surely greater FOV and adjustable eye spacing is needed if PlayStation wishes to significantly broaden their audience, like for sheep, fish, and frogs. Smart. Very smart.
Why not dogs? I feel like dogs could enjoy VR. I've seen dogs enjoying VR, actually.
But dogs' eyes are that far apart? They're kind of closer together, right?
Oh, that's true, I suppose. Yeah. You gotta get flies in there.
Sherzad Khan City with the $3 tip says 120 FPS or HZ native. Why am I not knowing?
It can do 120 hertz native. Yeah, I mean, so can the current headset.
Yeah,
and we can. Both FPS
but again, it's one of those.
The games have to support it.
Yeah, the games have to support it. In which most cases, they don't. Just running especially I don't think you're going to see a 4K. This is where the 4K you're going to see less of. Like a game's going to have to, unless the PS5 is just that powerful, which is kind of a possibility. Mm-hmm. Most games are going to have to choose frame rate or resolution. And just like the PS5 settings, there's probably going to be a toggle between the two, between performance and what's the other thing?
Resolution.
Yeah,
I think
don't think that
honestly,
be the case.
Sony. I don't think Sony will let you have a toggle. I think they're going to want to mandate that it is always in performance mode.
Right.
Like to always be as smooth as possible. I hope, because I think their main thing is comfort for players, and so that is what good graphics are a great thing to have, but when you're running at 120, you can just feel the difference in like, I don't know, everything just feels more immersive about it, and it's less nauseating too for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
Yeah, and for sure. We'll talk more about refresh rates in just a second here. Sergeant Frosty with a $2 tip. This is Frosty Train. This is Frosty
this
Express.
is
I can finally
Zamboni Express.
There are lots of little emojis there, man. It's tough to read. Frosty Express. We'd be going off the rails. Thank you so much for the tip, Frosty. Much love. Hope everything's going well. And I think we're all caught up on tips now, which is great. So we can move on to.
Actually, the refresh rate.
Yeah, perfect timing. The refresh rate is will be running natively. We didn't talk about this on the breaking news report, but it will run natively at 90 and 120 hertz. This is super important. There's definitely some times on the PlayStation VR 1 where there's a lot of ghosting, and it just kind of ruins the immersion. And so anything like higher refresh rates, higher frame rates, this is all going to be really, really good for the immersion factor and just helping your brain forget that you're in VR, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, as you mentioned, that is so noticeable when you go into a game that is running at 120 on the current PSVR. And so if we can think that most games that aren't super resource intensive will hopefully be targeting 120 instead of 90. Like, if those big scale games that have crazy graphics and,
Right.
AAA stuff, if that runs at 90, I'm totally fine with that. We're used to 90. It's okay. It's pretty decent. 120, though, is like the sweet spot.
Silky smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super silky smooth.
All right. Let's talk about the OLED display.
Yes, this was a huge surprise. I'm super excited about this one, if you can't tell. Now, we had heard rumors that were linking to this saying that, because I had made the assumption, I think a year or two ago when we were first speculating about PSVR2, that it was going to be, there was some tie-in with some manufacturing company. And so we kind of said, yeah, if they want to make it cheaper in the future, higher resolution, everything, then they're going to switch to, what is it, LED? LCD.
LED or LED.
Yeah, I think it was LCD. And but yeah, I am super pleased with this because with the OLED screens, you get super great contrast. The colors. That's one thing that nobody can ever take away from PSVR 1 is like the colors. The blacks are black. The color, the bright colors are like really vibrant, and it really just it brings a sense of like awe and like just yeah.
Well, then the HDR is a big thing too, because I don't know, like HDR just adds that little something extra, and Quest isn't trying to do HDR, are they? And like. It seems like this is just another thing that adds that level of like, this is a quality product. This is, going to be top of the line stuff. If I'm looking for a new TV, I want to make sure it says HDR on the box, right? So same thing with this. That's good to know.
Right. HDR is super important. So I'm really, really behind the times. Like I've got a plasma TV from like 11 years ago, I think, maybe longer. And so I don't have HDR. For other people out there like me, would either of you guys care to explain what it does to the picture when it's HDR compatible?
Well, I'm going to let the guy who isn't colorblind take this one, AJ, because you probably have experienced it a little bit more deeply than I have.
HDR is high dynamic range, and it basically just helps another layer of the color. It adds brightness, contrast, and color. That's the easiest way to put it. And this is something that was hinted at by one of the original members that did a press conference saying that this was going to be one of their goals in the future was to have HDR. And so I was really, really pleased to see this. This is something that's kind of new that popped up around this new generation, this previous generation of 4K TVs, how that became a new sensation. And there's all sorts of different HDR techniques, different TVs you'd have to choose. But I was a big fan of it. I have an HDR TV, and I think it made a good difference. And for those just wanting that just extra punch of color and stuff, and I think it's nice.
It's really like so many different things working together. I feel like, from what I've seen of HDR, I'm like, maybe if it wasn't on, I wouldn't really know, But when you start combining HDR with OLED screens, faster refresh rates and better screen resolution, I mean, when all this comes together, right? It makes me really kind of happy that they didn't do like a PSVR1 Pro or something, so that the jump is going to be so dramatic into the next generation. Like this is gonna, when all that stuff works together, I think we're all going to be really surprised.
Yeah. This mixed with the OLED is pretty sweet. Now, one of the drawbacks to OLED, though, I will say, is it does typically take a resolution bump. So it's going to be interesting to see how they tackle this. I mean, they've got the resolution listed here, but it's going to be interesting to see how they counter the resolution hit.
Nice. Guys, real quick, Mother India, Father Surf with the €5 says, do you guys feel, like me, that Resident Evil Village was not really delivering next-gen textures, and that is secretly, and it was secretly made with PSVR2 in mind?
Well, there is something that we'll discuss. Well, I mean, yeah, but there is something that we'll discuss later that I do believe could lend some credence to that theory.
I think it's just an early, to answer your question, I think it's just an early PS5 title is all.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is when they were doing the whole game testing and stuff, and the testers were asking the producer, like, will it have PSVR support? They're like, yeah, but we're waiting on Sony. And it's like, well, this is what we're waiting on Sony for, right? So I think Sony wants to make this announcement on their stage about PSVR2. And as Dave said, we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second.
Yes, indeed.
Another shout out to Tax Refund. The Earth was made in 6 literal days. GameCat with a $2 tip says, David was a man after God's own heart. Acts 13:22.
Yeah, I know specifically my name is biblical because my mom was very religious. Her dad was a pastor. So I know for sure it is a Bible reference. So good call out.
I have a bad feeling Brian is not in the Bible anywhere. And that reflects in my life.
Not in a good way.
Yeah, not in a good way. Gatorade23 with a $10 tip says, I would be happy with more AAA titles for PSVR2. Most, if not all, of PSVR1's AAA games were the best, hands down.
We got some news for you, Gatorade23, Gatorade23, in a couple topics, though.
We sure do. Yeah, we'll absolutely get there.
Stick around.
All right, guys, a couple random things here that we want to make sure that you're aware of. One of the things that has been rumored heavily for quite a while was that there'd be haptics in the headset. And that is absolutely going to be true. It sounds like, though, it's going to use some of like almost like the DualShock technology, where it's like the motors,
rotary
motors, right? The older style sense of vibration, which
takes away.
Well, go ahead. No, please. I'll respond to you.
The unfortunate part is that, so we were speculating about this, and we were like, being able to feel stuff like raindrops on your head, or other things like that, and this kind of takes away the chances of that happening, but it still means that there could be some rumble in the headset, and I still think that's super important for immersion. I remember the first thing after playing Astro's Playroom on the PS5 for the first time, I went back to VR, and the first thing I thought about was, man, I wish the headset had some kind of rumble in it, because I want to feel everything. I want to feel everything that's going on in every single possible place. And yeah, so the DualSense uses linear resonant actuators, is what it's called, or LRAs, and that is how it kind of hits all over the place in different ways, and so it's not going to use that same thing, which is unfortunate. But I'm just happy to have some form of this. But I do hope to see in a future that change a little bit. Go ahead.
No, I actually, I'm totally fine with everything you said. I think it just kind of changes the conversation a little bit, right? Instead of saying, "Oh, it might be raindrops on your head," which, again, I don't know if that's not doable. The DualShock 4 actually had a pretty good range on it, so I think some of these things are still possible. But the only thing that
it's also distributed over a wider area, and so a little bit of motor here versus when you just got 2 in your hands underneath each palm.
Yeah,
that's not really going to give you that sense of immersion. But if there's a little motor over here going off instead of a motor over here going off, and vice versa, that seems like it could come together to actually be pretty solid without needing the full-on DualSense, technology, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds initially disappointing, and obviously the more newer
I mean, the concept
tech,
itself, though, no, the concept itself is not disappointing to me at all. I'm
sure.
excited about it. Like,
Yeah.
we can quibble about the motors they're using and stuff, but I'm sure they know what they're doing as far as that goes.
Fingers
Um,
crossed. Fingers crossed.
But I think that this was one of the crazy, like, I didn't think this would really happen. I thought it was some patent that they would probably scrap or
It,
whatever.
it was a
And
patent, yeah.
well, yeah, but a lot of those, don't see the light of day. And I was just like, this is some crazy idea they probably won't do because no other VR headset that has ever been on the market that I'm aware of
Yeah.
has face haptics in it
Right.
that are,
Right.
and that's like a big jump forward. Like that could be, if it's as good as it could be really good. you
Right,
know?
and don't forget that not all of this is supposed to be about like raindrops or like like feeling the vibration of the car when you start the motor. It's Sony's doing this. It sounds like more than for any other reason than to help reduce or eliminate motion sickness.
Yeah.
Right.
And so if
That's
they,
what the patent was for. Was specifically for motion sickness. Nothing.
There are
else.
certain vibrations that can actually reduce motion sickness, even if it's not like tied to something in the game exactly, but like it might even be subtle enough that you could barely tell it's happening. But like
Yeah.
they've definitely done research that says, okay, this kind of wavelength, helps
Subtle little
stabilize
vibration.
people. Yeah.
well, and it's also like anything that will remove the feeling of that your head is just a camera moving through space. Right,
Mhm.
like anything that makes it feel like it's attached to something. Maybe like with every step there's footsteps. Something that just tricks your brain into going, oh no, I'm here and I'm actually moving around. I'm not just a camera that's floating.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, don't lie.
I get really giddy when I see people getting super nervous when they see this feature, and they're like, "Wait a minute!" So that game where I get punched in the head, I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna feel it."
Oh, I can't wait.
Or I love it.
Guys, we got a couple tips to take care of. We got Stupid Donkey with the $5 tip. Speaking fucking dropping knowledge over here. He says, "My cat's breath smells like cat food." Is that my cat smells like cat food? Is that that's Simpsons, right? Is that
Yeah.
Ralph? I think that's a
That's
Ralph
what it
Wiggum
sounds
quote. We also got Belramio the Game Cat with the 22 euros saying, "Sorry I'm late. What did I miss?" Also, haptics. Don't forget there's a cushioning in the headsets. And head is not hands. Maybe you would never feel raindrops as it's not as sensitive. And head is not hands.
Head is not hands.
Dropping
Very
more
wise
knowledge.
words from Bill Ray. Head is
Thank you guys. You guys are really you keeping the channel alive. I really, really appreciate the donations. You guys are awesome. But we need to move on, and we're going to move on to something that's super simple and maybe really obvious, and that's that the system.
Is new.
Yeah, this is new. This was not discussed in the breaking news report. The system UI will be superimposed over the game.
Now this is good news. I like this. This is
Yeah.
how Quest does it, and it's a better system. It's more seamless. You can more easily traverse, the whole thing. Like you don't have to go back to this screen and then it's flat and you got to scroll through and then whatever. It's just like you're in VR the whole time, and there's a thing that pops up that says, "What game do you want to play?" Right? And I feel like that's such a better implementation.
It is because you don't have to exit everything. It's kind of like it's the closest thing it's similar to is like the quick menu that we had before. We don't have that quick menu anymore, really. I don't think. The PS5 is honestly with some of the menu stuff can be a little tedious sometimes, and can be menus buried within menus buried within menus. I agree. I like the way the Quest does it. You have your right start button brings up one certain menu, left start button brings up another menu, and you can either quit the game, go to the apps, make adjustments to the game, change settings and stuff. So this will obviously let you mess with some of the main menus things from inside the game.
One thing I also hope is that so currently when you're streaming on the PSVR from PS5 with the current UI setup there, you can't see the comments on the screen. And there's a way to set this up when I streamed from my Quest where you can have like a pinned thing that just shows you the comments, and just like even a little UI thing for streaming where you get them floating in your screen, but they're not displayed to everybody in chat. So it doesn't cover up the stream, but like you can see your little floating UI pop up of the messages. I hope that they do something like that because currently streaming is a little worse than it was on PS4, just because you either have to have it talk to you and cover up the audio, or like have can't see
Big
the
menu
comments.
pop up.
Yeah.
That's when it works. That is.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's always a little bit strange when you exit a VR game. You're like in VR, everything is all around you, and then you have to hold the PlayStation button, and suddenly you're just like in cinema mode again. So being able to switch between games and doing that kind of stuff, just kind of on the fly, bringing up something that's in VR, like whether it just be like a flat menu in VR or whatever it is, to be able to swap around, I think just feel way more natural and feel way less tacked on, like PlayStation VR 1 had a tendency to do.
Yeah.
Let's see. Moving on. So, all right. I do want to phrase this correctly, because the next piece of news isn't news. It's this. We're repeating the exact same thing because it was repeated. It was repeated at the summit, and that's that the PSVR2 headset connects using a single small USB-C cable. Now, go ahead.
Not a big reveal, although a lot of people talk about like, oh, there's so much crap I have to plug in. I leave it, in the closet, and I never want to hook it up because there's the breakout box and there's all these cables and stuff. And I can see, there's some people who it doesn't make sense to leave that all hooked up all the time, right?
Right.
Right.
So with this, you just got the one cable. You plug it in like any other thing. It's like plugging in a controller or something, just like easy as pie.
Right.
And USB-Cs are typically pretty lightweight too. Like you probably won't even notice it's there. I do wonder if it's detachable though. Like if one end is just like perma stuck, or if you can just like pop it out and use whatever USB-C you got laying around.
I do hope it's detachable, considering this gen, how many times we saw somebody's cable get damaged or something like that. I would like some kind of mechanism to maybe lock it in place, and maybe it has like an emergency detachable like feature to it. But yeah, one cable solution just plugs in directly to the front of the PS5. I'm actually excited about that because the PS5 doesn't have a ton of ports, and I'm not using the C cable port, so it'll clear up like what, two USB ports and utilize that one. So it'll be a big deal for me just having that one wire solution. And we still don't have, we have to imagine at this point that it's just a wire and that's it.
Right.
But we still don't have any word that there's some kind of wireless adapter or anything yet.
Right. I think, the fact is that Sony didn't spend any time on this. And if they haven't been listening, so many people, whether they're the vocal minority or whether they actually are the majority, have said, I don't want wired headsets. Like, it's wireless or nothing. And I'm curious to know if they've been paying attention to that, if they have a solution for that. And personally, I think we're far enough away from the launch of PSVR 2 that we haven't heard the end of this yet. And that's maybe just me being hopeful that like they're going to satisfy what everybody wants. But, at the same time, they want this to be something that's going to last a long time. That's something that won't feel outdated after the first year. And so maybe giving us options to make sure that it doesn't feel outdated is a smart move.
The only thing I can think of is that, we've got all the specs here. There is no mention of any kind of battery on board. There is no charging solution. And so if you did have an adapter to make it wireless, it would also have to somehow wirelessly charge the headset at the same time, which just doesn't seem feasible to me.
Can you charge through USB-C?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. That's how no. What I'm saying is then it's not wireless. It's got to be plugged into something to get power from, even though it's a USB-C.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so if you take the cable out, I can see, it turns off.
Right.
There's no battery in the thing. So that would add a lot of money and weight and like production costs to the headset to have an onboard battery. And I think we'd have heard about it if it was in the specs.
I still have a theory that maybe
wireless is going to be issued. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a theory that maybe that's something we'll see with like a pro model or something in the future.
Would be nice.
Or just have to wait for the next VR headset well in the future, because as far as I see it, as much as I like the convenience, the ease of use and everything, the battery life that's on the Quest right now is not good. It's like 2 hours. I have 2 hours on it with the base model. And that's it. And I spend a lot of my time playing the headset plugged in or I have to do short sessions. The other thing is when Xbox, actually, when Phil Spencer was on Kind of Funny Gamescast and he talked about, I think Blessing asked him about VR and what their plans were. When he said standalone wireless stuff, he was like, well, if it's wireless, then I don't see it having to work with Xbox. Like he seemed to feel like wireless was a better solution for standalone headsets. But we know that there's the Wi-Fi 6, the Bluetooth 5.1. So I'm not really completely ruling that out. Even though I'm completely fine with the one wire, I'm never going to really completely rule that out until it's official.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. These are all the specs right now. And the fact is it's not complete. This is we found out that for sure that this is not the end of the line, and they're not putting this into production and shipping them out to development teams this way, right? Like we'll get into more about that in a little bit, but technically anything could happen, and especially things that don't affect game design, right? Things that don't affect game design could certainly happen with the headset. Wouldn't affect developers even in the slightest. So, right. But we'll circle. It would
end up in the final form factor. Right.
Absolutely, we'll circle back around to that. On an upcoming show, we can always talk more about wireless versus wired. But in the meantime, Shirzad Khan City with a $5 tip says, would PS5 be cheaper without VR box internally implanted on all systems, or is it a different tech?
I think it's a different tech. Yeah, because like they had to. So a lot of PlayStation VR was workarounds, right? It's right, like, okay, how are we going to make this work? Okay, I guess we can take this old camera we've had forever and these old controllers, and maybe that'll work. And then the other part of it too was the power of the PS4 by itself. It needed a little boost. It needed an extra processing unit.
Something to split it.
Well, and also just there was a little bit extra processing power in there, as far as I know. That's why it's all jacked in, and there's a bunch of USBs and power cable. Like if it was just splitting the display, it wouldn't need all that. So that was adding a little bit to what the PlayStation could do to get it to the VR level. I don't think the PS5 needs that boost or any kind of extra stuff. I think the USB, you can just pop it in, and at this point, USB-C is not just a charging solution. You can display video over it pretty reliably.
It's fast and lots of data. Yep.
So it's not an issue anymore.
We also get tax refund. The Earth was made in 6 literal days. GameCat Ringer with the $2 tip says the answer to 20 questions today is Batman Arkham VR. Thank you so much. Got to go way out ahead of us. All right, guys. I think we got to move on to the next big headline here, which would be the controllers. No.
Orbs, baby. Oh, still no name yet, though. Still no name. But I personally like the Orbs. I'll probably be okay if they call them something else, but it's Orbs all day. But yeah, inside-out tracking was confirmed, which I don't know if they already had confirmed that or not.
I think we kind of knew that, though, based on the design of the controllers and stuff.
Yeah, when they revealed the controllers initially, they basically said the controllers are being tracked by cameras in the PSVR2 headset, which is the definition of inside-out tracking. So for anyone who wasn't sure that was going to be the case, now we'll double down on it and say, yes, 100% that is the case.
So also, when they mentioned before finger touch detection, or finger detection, and they actually call it capacitive touch sensors for thumb, index, and middle, and they're describing it as analog, which is it like you described in your video breakdown, Brian. It not only detects your fingers pressing down, but it can actually detect the distance from the part of the controller, and it can infer the position of the other fingers as a result. And let me just say, I've had a tidbit of experience with the finger detection stuff, and when it comes to immersion, it is pretty sweet. Looking at if you see a virtual hand and it matches 1-to-1 your movements in there, and you've got some crazy hand. It is crazy immersive, and it is a really cool experience. This is something that's a small feature that will be in a lot of games, but it's going to be important for immersion. It's going to be huge for immersion.
Yeah,
Maybe not gameplay so much.
yeah. I don't see it being like a game changer, being like, oh, we needed this, but when you see it and it's one of those many things that helps trick your brain, then yeah, it again, just like 4K, just like HDR, just like everything else that we've been talking about. It's you add all these little things up together, and suddenly it's kind of an amazing new experience. And I know there's actually been a few people who feel like it was a huge miss to not do the analog tracking on all of your fingers. But the fact that I can't imagine a situation where your hand is doing something like and holding a controller at the same time, and the inference system that they're
Well,
using.
like, do I need a system where I can hold a gun like this and then wiggle my pinky finger around for no reason? Like, that's not going to add much immersion. But the feeling of knowing that when I rest my fingers around the gun handle, yeah, I can see them curl and
Right.
grasp it. That's what adds immersion. Having a independently tracked pinky is like not necessary for anything.
Right.
Like
The things you're going to be doing in VR games are fairly standard, and so like when you grip something or when you pick something up, like these are normal hand motions, and so the fact that the inferred finger positions, I think, are going to be pretty damn accurate.
Yeah, well, it can use. I mean, it can use both the capacitive touch thing and also the cameras to some degree. I think. I mean, the Quest does some hand tracking stuff that I think Sony could probably figure out at some point for certain applications. Like somebody said, typing on a virtual keyboard. As long as it can track your fingers with the onboard cameras, the technology already exists to do just straight finger tracking. So
Have to
that
have a
could
nice
be an option
camera.
too. Yeah.
Hopefully they've got some nice cameras in there. Chairface has it right here, where he says middle finger is a system seller. Could not agree more. How many times did we play London Heist or any of those other games, and you put somebody and they're like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely, and don't forget, like not tracking all 5 fingers is a price cutting cost. But you know what I'm trying to say. It's a price cutting maneuver, and so like the fact is, like, some people have said, oh, this is going to be like a $600 headset. These are the kind of things that will keep it from being a $600 headset, right? There's going to be little things here and there that will that they'll do from the software side of things rather than the hardware side that will make it cheaper.
Yeah.
Whew, man.
Excellent. So next on the controllers, this let's see. It says seems like the DualSense could be supported, but didn't talk about how it could be tracked. So this is an interesting one. I don't think we have to go too deep into this, but yeah, some games might have DualSense support. This could be really important for like games like being like Astrobot or something potentially in the future.
Or like
games.
racing games or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just like games where some people are going to want to prefer a single unified controller. Because like
There
even though
are
you have all the
games,
buttons
yeah.
you've got, when I'm playing a racing game, unless I'm fake holding the wheel, I kind of just prefer having a regular DualShock
Right.
in my hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And the thing is, as Multimove says, I was about to bring this up. Look at the front of the DualSense. The reason they switched the light bar thing
Right.
towards you instead of facing away from you is because that's where the cameras are going to be pointed on your face. Right. And so just track that bar. Yeah, exactly. So that seems, if it can track everything else, it seems like it could track that pretty well.
Right. Right.
And this is okay.
Well, it makes a lot of sense, but for the first time since PSVR launched, this won't be a requirement, right? There won't be games that are DualSense only. From the sounds of it, they're that the controllers are going to be packed into every single box.
That's what it says here. Yep. Controllers will be packed in every headset, standard for PSVR2. That is a big deal. It was such a nightmare for a lot of people in the EU and stuff, trying to get and move controllers, trying to find those. This is something, it was reused technology from the PSI toy days and the Move controllers. I was lucky enough that I had my pair already still, but yeah, that's huge. That's maybe one of the most important things from this whole conference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
and I always thought this was going to be the case, though. I mean, you can't market this thing and sell the controllers separately. It's just not a good idea. And also, like you said, the scarcity of individual products that are peripherals that you kind of need for it has been a huge issue the whole time. I mean, people haven't been able to get aim controllers, people haven't been able to get moves, and this thing's been out for so long. You know, it's like it shouldn't be this hard. So the pack-in is just, yeah, complete no-brainer. Makes a ton of sense.
Right. We don't need to worry about which controllers are supported. Some game, you know, all of them seems like will support the Orbs, and that's just standard moving forward, right? This is how these games are going to play. And then some will say, oh, and you can also use that DualSense thing that you have too, right?
Well, I think there might be ones that are just DualSense only because
that's the opposite impression that I'm getting. Like this is go ahead.
The only thing that pops out to me is that there are some games that will always, like I was saying, that will always feel better played on a traditional controller. And I think the fact that everyone has one, because to have a PSVR2, you're going to have a PS5. So it's already like part of the pack-in deal as well. Like they know you've got a DualSense. So I think that there could be games that are just like, no, we're not using the Orbs on this one. It's just DualSense because that makes the most sense. For
it at least will be an option. Game. You'd have to think it will at least have to be an option.
Yeah,
maybe.
I'm 100% sticking with these are the controllers, and the DualSense will occasionally be an option. But these are the controllers that work with every single game, because it's just like trying to unify this crazy control scheme that we've had for so long. Move controllers, aim controller, DualShock 4. Everybody's got one or the other or something, and so now it's finally just like, hey, these.
I agree with you, but I also agree with Dave in that some games the DualSense might feel better. Let's put it that way.
100% agree with that statement. 100%. I also want to give a shout out to Andrew Bailey with the 20 quid donation. Says, level 10 reached. Love your work and stuff, guys, and stuff. Lots of stuffs today in the chat. And right
they were counting AJ.
I know. I was trying not to bring attention to it, but I was keeping track too. I was like, bing, bing, bing.
It worked. It worked. Congrats, Andrew Bailey.
Thank you so much, Andrew Bailey. All right, guys. So controllers are packed in with every single headset. They're going to be standard for PlayStation VR2. We talked about the capacitive touch sensors and the DualSense support, which brings us to some of the different hardware techniques, rendering techniques that PlayStation VR2. This is the
tricky stuff right here.
This is pretty tricky stuff. And one of the first things that was said in the breaking news report was talking about hardware FSR, which is flexible scaling resolution. All right. On the surface, this sounds like foveated rendering, right? Foveated rendering, as we all know, most of us played Resident Evil 7 on the OG with the PSVR headset. And the stuff in the middle of the screen was definitely in focus. And as you get further and further into your peripheral vision, the resolution drops and drops and drops, right? But most of the time you're looking straight ahead. So it wasn't a huge deal, but if you start paying attention to it, you're like, wow, this is really distracting, like if you're not like really immersed. So FSR is actually completely different. And this is game changer in the fact that it's going to be able to do it from a hardware standpoint. This is a game changer for PSVR. What it's doing is actually rendering the entire scene at a lower resolution. And then using AI and algorithms, it upscales it to the target resolution. And then you end up with an image that looks just as sharp as the thing you were going for, but you're only using a half or quarter of the processing power to do it, right?
Yeah.
And this is how games are going to look is good. Like in the headset as normal PlayStation 5 games, because now you can render two images simultaneously, right? Which should take double the horsepower, but it's not. It's taking probably the same amount of horsepower or less.
Well, and the other thing too, I mean, we talk about how this isn't foveated rendering, and this is, when we talk about foveated rendering, what we've latched onto with these specs is eye tracking, because, you tie those two together, and that's part of the whole package where it foveates to render. Like Resident Evil, like you were talking about, just assumed a static sort of like, this is where we foveate right here. But this will be able to follow your eyes and stuff. And so I think combined with what you're talking about, that's what's going to be like the big whammy in terms of like having stuff that can run reasonably well, but look really fucking good in the headset.
Right? Yeah. This is probably one of the biggest ways this gen is going to differentiate itself from the previous gen on PS4 and PSVR 1. Completely different technique here, and a huge difference, and could save a lot of power. Could save a lot of hardware usage.
Yeah, and it's doing the foveated rendering eye tracking, and FSR, all from a hardware standpoint, right? So the software is not going to have to be doing this, and so this is gonna be freeing up a lot of horsepower.
Oh, that's actually good to know. I was wondering, like, are developers going to have to develop for this specifically and like keep that in mind? Or, but it sounds like you think it's just platform level. Anything takes advantage of this capability, regardless of how it's designed, right?
It's a good question. It's a good question. Like, is it just a switch that you can flip and be like, oh, our game's not hitting the FPS that we want? Flip the switch. Oh, everything works great now. Like,
Yeah.
it would be really good to find that out. But the fact is, like, yeah, all this stuff working together, and I don't know if I don't think we went deep enough into this. If your experience with foveated rendering is like Resident Evil 7, you know, it's so obvious because your eye does move around the screen. You're looking at different parts of the screen, or you know, if you're not moving your head might get tired. I don't know. Like, you got to look around, and then you're seeing all this pixelization. But yeah, as Dave was saying, the eye tracking will make sure that the center, the most focused part, the highest resolution part, is where your eye is looking. And again, that's some fucking complicated shit, right? And if the headset's doing that like just natively, automatically, like, that's really impressive. Really impressive.
Well, I'm glad we have Multimoo in the chat here, because Multimoo is very knowledgeable about all this stuff. And actually, the issue of Nick brought up something. He said, I'm confused because it sounds like it would take extra processing power to track your eyes and then change where things are sharper in real time. Multimoo says, no, that's actually not true. It's like the same kind of data you'd get from a motion controller. Which, I mean, if you think about it, just little data points of like, just little, you know, it's coordinates.
It knows what to track.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's not sending a lot of data to say this is where his eyes are right now, because you're used to games tracking every input you have immediately on every control device you have, right? So it's like just another controller input, basically, is what he's saying, which makes a lot of sense. So it's not really using that much extra horsepower to do that. So that's good to know.
Yeah, this is really good, guys. This is what's going to make, you know, when we talk about like next gen VR, like, we are not taking a single step forward. This is not the difference between PS2 and PS3. We are skipping a generation here because not only are we getting what you'd expect from a generational update, but it's also all of these little tricks that are working together to make sure that the headset can display something that you are very, very familiar with. Like, whatever's on your screen is going to be really similar to what's in the headset, and that's a big deal. All right, guys. So we've talked about the rendering techniques and how games are going to look amazing, but we can't forget about Sony's support for developers, and they've got some upcoming programs that are happening. First and foremost, prototypes for this headset are going out as early as like next month. They're saying the end of summer. Now, these aren't like dev kits that you get to keep, right? These are prototypes where you can mess around, get your game going, and then you do have to send it back eventually, right? So it doesn't sound like dev kits are just out there, right?
Don't put it on eBay, is what they're saying.
Don't put it on eBay. We're gonna need this thing back. Yeah. And so that's really good. They're gonna start getting the prototypes out there so that people can, you know, get started on the right foot. But then they're also going to have a couple programs in the fall of this year is a getting started series, and in Q1 of next year is a deeper look series. And so this is all part of like a Sony initiative to help all developers make PSVR2 games. And that's, you know, whether it's getting your flat screen game into VR and helping you do that more easily, or just kind of teaching you the basics, or making sure that everyone's on the same page. They are fucking committed, man. Right? They are very, very committed.
I love it. This is reminiscent of the early. This is very reminiscent of early PS4 stages. What made it so successful was that closer connection to developers and consumers, and this is huge for that. And them helping out a little bit. And they will benefit for sure, because they're going to end up discovering some of the most talented, creative people that will develop games for them, and then they get that exclusive content.
Yeah. Now, finally, and this is my favorite part of the entire summit, and that's when we're talking about games. because we have a lot of us have been through the last 5 years together, right? And we've seen sort of the change in mindset when it comes to first party, when it comes to third party, and everybody at the beginning was thinking, oh yeah, let's get VR experiences, right? Like they're quick to make, and like no one wants to stay in VR for very long, and no big deal. Sony is very aware that's not what people want, and and so
No.
So they have for PlayStation VR2, they're going to have a heavy focus on console quality VR games. That is in terms of quality, that is in terms of length, that is just console games, but now they're in VR. And they're talking about how the IPs, the titles that are recognizable to people, these should be VR games. And the best way to make that happen is to make them hybrid games. Right, and that's something that we've been talking about quite a bit. Is the best way to make this happen is to have these big AAA flat screen games that you put on the VR headset, and suddenly it's also a VR game. That way, you put millions and millions and millions of dollars behind the big project, and also make it PSVR2 compatible. That is the way to get more AAA games on PSVR2, and Sony realizes this, and that's their initiative.
This was the dream from like this first gen. This is something that we wanted. We wanted our BioShocks in VR, and we wanted our Bloodborns in VR and all this stuff. Not saying that just every single game is going to magically just convert, but this has a lot to go with that. There was the kind of like a PowerPoint presentation that we got recently where it said they aim to have their PSVR2, their next gen VR experiences synonymous with like the PlayStation brand, the PlayStation identity, and that is the games. The thing that I think matters the most once they get the hardware going. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, this is also, whenever we talk about Squadrons, I always remember this one experience I had where I was playing with people who were on voice chat who were flat screen players, and I was talking about playing in VR, and I didn't even have to say that much about it, but they were just immediately like, oh, bro, that sounds really cool. Damn, like, man, I wish I was playing this in VR. And I think especially games like that where, like, some random person who just hasn't considered VR can be talking to another person and then think like, oh, wait, they get to do that in, like, reality, and I'm just sitting here on a screen? Like, I want to do that. And it creates that kind of, like, FOMO effect of like, I already have this game, but other people are enjoying it better than I am, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a pretty powerful motivator for people to see like other people enjoying the same thing you're enjoying, but it's not so dichotomous of like, you're playing your dumb VR games and I'm playing my AAA flat screen games. It's the same game, bro. What are you gonna do? Yeah. You want to play it like that, or you want to play it like this? Like, and I think that's going to be very powerful marketing for Sony.
Absolutely. We've talked about this before. This was something that we basically said this has to be in the game plan if they want this to be successful, is brand name recognition and stuff. Yeah. Shut up, Andrew. But anyways, one of the bullet points here says use well-established marquee IPs to bring new players to VR, and that's where you mentioned the hybrid content. That is going to be essential. Stuff like Resident Evil. People want look how much better or how much more impactful Resident Evil was in VR. Stuff like Gran Turismo 7, which I am dying for. Now, you take some of these more successful games, and these bigger games that are currently hot right now, stuff like Spider-Man, or an IP, Spider-Man, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn. It'll be really, really interesting to see if they go to those lengths to bring their top dog, like brand IPs into VR.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Insomniac, I'll say this, Insomniac has Spider-Man and Sony has Insomniac. And they'd be crazy not to do anything with that.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of these studios that Sony's bought recently or now currently own, have some VR experience. Like Insomniac has made several VR games already. They've got it under their belt. And so it's not like they're just getting people who don't know what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got these massive devs like Naughty Dog and, the God of War people and stuff. Santa Monica studio, I think that's one. Like, you have to assume that if they have this mindset of we're going to develop for both, those people are going to be making our PSVR2 games. Like, your Naughty Dogs, your Rockstars, you're all those guys. Like, and that's what's going to get people excited.
Yeah, and it's even more important to note that Sony is very, very clear on the fact that when you're playing these games in VR, they should feel like that they were made for VR. That's a huge bullet point, and that's
Right.
and that's something that Resident Evil 7 didn't manage. It was like, oh, this is your hybrid PSVR 1 game, but then everybody complained that you didn't have your hands, you didn't have move controllers in the game, and it was like, okay, well, this is what's changing all of that, right? So when you do have these hybrid games, there will be orb support, right? And so you are going to have two hands in the game. And it'll be really interesting to see what they do to, as AJ was sort of alluding to, is Horizon going to suddenly be a first person game in VR and you're shooting bows and arrows and running around in first person using the orbs? I mean, that would be
I'd play it.
amazing, right?
I
Could
think
it
that
be-
one of the best examples is No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky, I played from 2016 with the DualShock, and it was just a regular third-person game. When you play that game in VR with the Move controllers, everything changes. The UI changes. It becomes actually better that you can easily select through the menus and the inventory and stuff. Instead of going up to a ship and pressing X, now you grab the handle of the ship and you open it. Inside the ship is a virtual like joystick that you hold on to. And I love that we've already seen, this has been one of the biggest things, biggest complaints gameplay wise for me, innovation wise, which we know Sony has said over and over, we want to innovate, but they want to do it in the right direction. This is the right direction. When you're in that VR mode, you want to have those VR interactive features more than just this gen, as an accessibility device, maybe using the DualSense or something is totally fine. But there has to be a built from the ground up design to be able to interact with objects and different things in VR. That's going to be huge for immersion and gameplay and innovation experiences and stuff.
Now, I think there's probably a little gray area here, though, in terms of like, if a game is designed to be a third-person AAA game, and that's what works best for the game, it would be so much extra work to make Assassin's Creed like every interaction VR focused, orbs focused. And so I can see to some degree where they're like, it's got to feel like a VR game, but some VR games are third-person games. And that's just, that might be a thing.
Yeah.
But like, it's still way more immersive to have your head be the camera and you're looking around the world and stuff. And they could, make sure it's optimized so that it feels good to play it in that way. But I don't think this means that like every Horizon Zero Dawn is going to have a completely separate mode where you're actually doing everything with your hands. The amount of design, like the money it would take to do that for every AAA game, it's just so much more effort.
I'm really curious, man, because especially with first party games like Horizon, I feel like that's where it would happen, because Sony's like, we're already spending millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on this. Let's spend a few more million to make sure that this is very VR when you play it in VR. I'm not saying that every third person game should be first person in VR. That's not even close to what I want to the point that I want to get across. But I do think that when we see this done really well, it's going to be done by Sony. Now, so a couple things about that. First is that for these hybrid games, Sony wants to make sure that you can download either the flat screen version or the PSVR2 version, right? So
That was very interesting.
These games are being sold together. Again, let's use Resident Evil 7 as an example. You gotta download the entire thing, regardless of whether you're never going to play on the flat screen or not. And so to save,
are they going to bring back folders? Are they going to bring back folders? Because now we're going to have a PS4 version, a PS5 version that we have to switch between. Now we got to have a PS5 VR version, like to switch between. Bring back folders. What happened to them? We're going to need them. That's going to be so. It's not going to be a problem, but man, that is just another clunky, tedious menu thing. Just saying. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And like I know a lot of people aren't going to upgrade their PlayStation 5 storage, so this is a great solution for that. They're like, don't fill up my hard drive with 30 gig of a game that I'm not using. Like, just let me download the VR part and be done with it.
Yeah, when I was trying to get Hitman Trilogy set up, I can't tell you how much hard drive space that shit took. Oh my god!
I don't even want to get into Hitman. That's a whole nother beast.
All right, guys, real quick, I want to give a shout out to a few different people. Cyber Comedy Jam. Sorry for the delay on these tips, man. We're getting into some fun conversations, and we're holding you off a little bit. $2 tip says, PSVR 2 has a possibility of Boneworks and Half-Life Alyx. Absolutely, man.
Yeah,
Like I feel like both of
100%.
those would be perfect launch titles, right? There's no reason to delay that kind of stuff. Those games have been made on PCVR and perfected and worked on. Patches are all out, good to go. Let's just port it on over. The port process should not take long. And we'll talk about why in a second. Belramio, the Game Cat with a 549 euros says they should just release baby hands and everyone will be happy. I mean, with the orbs, of course. No, I don't. Although I do want to play baby hands. All right, and finally, Mad Max Stone, the Game Cat Avenger, with the $5 tip says, guys, I just heard, and I knew that you were talking about it.
Pizza times 3.
That's our job. That's our job, baby.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Mad Max, for getting over here and being part of the
Not a
conversation.
problem.
We also got, AJ, do you want to say this name?
Oh, he does.
You got cold yogurt.
With the $10 tip says, it would be a big win if all PS5 games we played have NGVR baked in. It'll be insane. So you guys know,
Yeah.
I mean, I've been saying this forever. My dream is for a Sony press conference where they show off a ton of first-party games, and then
Yeah.
they say, and everything you just saw is playable in VR.
Yeah.
Right? Just with that
Yeah.
same exact voice. And I'm just like, oh, man, I've had dreams about this. Please, God, let it happen.
Well, and I wonder, like, so to some degree where, like, there's PS5 patches coming out or PS5 versions coming out as free upgrades for games that already exist on PS4, I wonder to some degree, if we're going to see that same thing with existing PS5 games. Like, okay, PSVR2 has been announced. We're going to just let you know Returnal will be supported in VR when you get your
please.
VR headset. Like,
I know,
shit like
right?
that would be huge to say,
Amazing.
like, oh, yeah, we already had this in mind, but we just didn't tell you yet. And,
Now, that's
There you
what I
go.
want in first person, man. I want to be firing like from.
oh, God, that'd be terrifying.
It would be. I know. It'd be like
All
a
those
horror game finally, like, right?
It is kind
Well,
of a horror game.
Guys, this brings us to our last, but most certainly not least. This is one of the biggest questions regarding PS5, PSVR1, PSVR NGVR, and backwards compatibility. We predicted before, at least I did. I'm pretty sure you guys said something similar. Was that the PS5 is already backwards compatible in that using an adapter, you can play the PSVR 1 headset to play PS4 VR games. And we didn't think, because of the drastic change in controllers, hardware, different things like that, the limited backwards compatibility mode with the slight boost and stuff, we didn't think that PSVR 2 was going to be easily able to play, just automatically adapt every single PSVR 1 game without some sort of like really good solution. So what they've told us here is that there's going to be a big focus on PSVR 1 remasters. And I can already think off the top of my head, there's quite a few, because for a PS5 game, every VR game that you can play on PS5 is a PS4 game. It's just running in backwards compatibility mode. Anything that goes to PS5 is going to be a NGVR game, and it has to have a PS5 SKU to be able to be considered a next gen title.
Yeah, this is so obviously I think the perfect solution would be if Sony created some sort of way to convert light tracking to inside out tracking and just kind of make everything just sort of work with the orbs. It's a tough ask, right? Because just way too much that goes into that. Even though I'm really, really hopeful that they do find some kind of workaround. But man, if you said to me, hey, we're going to have some remasters of the Hitman trilogy, and you're going to have two hands and control it with the orbs, and you don't have to ever worry about the DualShock 4, which is my least favorite part about Hitman 3, like by a large margin. It would be amazing. How much more immersive would that be with two hands in that game? Like maybe
Oh my
full
God.
body.
Well, the other thing too is like, I've said this before, I think, but I would love if they did some of this at launch, where it's like there's like a PlayStation VR Classics lineup, where like, how when you got a PS5, if you had Plus, Sony was like, hey man, have these great PS4 games, and then that was it. You just had a collection ready to go, right?
Yeah.
And so I think if they did the same thing with like top tier PSVR games for launch, just to have a library when you buy the thing, because a lot of people will be new owners of a VR headset, I think. if it's as exciting as it seems like it's going to be, there will be people buying this thing who've never tried VR and never played any of these VR games. And so having those upgraded versions of stuff right out of the gate would be a really strong, benefit, I think, and get people up to speed on the, VR history, VR landscape, whatever.
Yeah, I don't think you need the entire library ported to PSVR2.
Yeah.
But there are some games that would be tragic to not have. I think, Brian, you mentioned, I could be wrong here. Maybe I shouldn't say, I don't think it was you that mentioned, but from our knowledge, stuff from PSVR 1, this flexible scaling resolution hardware trick can, from my understanding, can be potentially used if it gets developed, or if it already can, I don't know, to enhance these games onto PSVR 2 if they get upgraded. Is that correct? From my understanding, am I understanding that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, as if the power of the PlayStation 5 wasn't enough already, right? Like, I mean, if you got something running on the OG PS4 and then you bring it over to the PlayStation 5, you're automatically just going to pretty much take care of all of your problems, right? Not with the flip of a switch or anything, but developers know what they're doing, and so being able to just use all that extra horsepower. But then on top of that, yeah, if you're going to be utilizing all of these extra features, I mean, it's an absolute no-brainer. The thing's going to be running at the highest resolution possible. It's going to be amazing.
It can actually help bring some picture clarity to those games that were previously blurry, even though they shouldn't have been due to the having issues running on the PS4 hardware. They were blurry, and so some of these games, I think a lot of games will get a second chance if they're going to be pushing for as many remasters as possible. And yeah, I think it's going to be a dev by dev basis, which is a free upgrade for some. Some's going to be maybe a potentially just completely separate release, or hey, did you buy the deluxe edition and you get the free upgrade, or something like that. Really,
really, really hope that because Sony is planning on seeing so many new PlayStation VR2 gamers, and they want to reward the people who stuck around, right, and purchased all these games last gen, I hope it would be the best of both worlds, right? If you already bought the game, you get the free upgrade, but now you're also selling this brand new game, quote unquote brand new, to all of the new people who just bought a PSVR 2 and never were here for the PSVR 1.
I think every single Sony first party game or Sony owned studio that has gotten a PS5 upgrade for the game that was a PS4 game was free. The only one I can think of that cost money was outside of Sony stabled. Like Tony Hawk, they charged $10 for the next gen upgrade.
Okay.
Devil May Cry, they made you rebuy the entire fucking game to play it on PS5, which sucked, but I did it anyways. But Sony though, God of War, the original Ratchet and Clank one for PS4, like all these PS5 upgrades they put out have been free. It's just an update. So I expect we'll continue to see that with Sony's games. With other developers, I don't know though. I mean, there is a precedent for them upcharging for an upgrade. So
yeah,
we'll have to see how that pans out.
I am fully expecting either games that were massively successful or didn't get a fair chance. Games like, when I say like a huge success, stuff like pretty much every game behind me right now, like Saints and Sinners, I would totally expect to see, Dreams, which has first party connections. Moss Book 2, we know, has a great relationship with Sony. I could definitely see a lot of these games getting upgrade and remasters, and not to mention maybe the biggest one of all, Resident Evil 7. I could totally see getting a makeover with the new headset and the Orbs.
Chat has told me that I'm wrong. Apparently, Sony is charging $10 for the Ghost of Tsushima update, which kind of sucks. I didn't realize that would be the first one that I know of to do that. So I'm not sure.
Well, the point is here, there's going to be some incredible games that are upgraded, and I'm curious to see which ones are they going to actually go back in. If they can go back in and redesign Resident Evil 4 and make it more like interactive, more stuff like that, then absolutely I would expect Resident Evil 7 and 8, and probably going to be like a bundle, a PS5 bundle or something.
Here are the games I expect. to have re-releases.
Robinson the
remasters
Journey.
on PSVR 2, and well, actually, no, that one would be would not be included based on what I'm about to say. Any studio that's still around making games, right? That any studio that's still around making games that made a PSVR
Has a
1
chance.
game, I would say has a huge chance. We're like, oh, all we got to do is like fucking spruce this thing up and give it some Orb support and like push it back on the PlayStation Store, and now suddenly be in front of like 10 million new potential customers. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you do that, right? So that's kind of where my head's at there. Guys, we got some tips I got to take care of real quick. Mother India Father Surf, again, with the €5. Says Spider-Man 2 in VR plus co-op full campaign. Internet gets broken. That's...
I agree. Grand Theft Auto 5, internet gets broken.
No, yeah. I mean, like, in a heartbeat. Like, internet never work again. Jay Meow with the $5 tip says, upgrades take work and cost money. I'm happy to pay. I can always play them on my PSVR 1 if I don't want to pay for an upgrade. I agree to an extent.
Not everybody's, got as deep as pockets as you, Jay. Now,
I agree to an extent. Like I do think, I do think that there's got to be some goodwill to the people that have already supported you, like when you needed the support, right? And again, you're going to have this huge opportunity to sell this remaster to a whole new audience. So like, there's money to be made. It's not like they're doing it for free. So, but we'll see what happens though.
it's going to be huge, but I'm excited. I think that's going to be really, really important for those that didn't get to this gen and didn't get to experience this gen, missed out on some great titles, as well as maybe held off for the second headset. They're missing these games that are going to be coming out real soon, like Fract and Arashi after the fall, all these games that look really awesome, and they're going to miss out on those, but they want to wait for the next headset. They need an opportunity to play these games because, these are some of the best PSVR has to offer. Astrobot, of course, and everybody wins with these games getting brought to the next gen one way or another.
Yeah, and I mean, even for games that are just in development now, this is exciting because, like, the Quest has been the target headset for a lot of developers, the hot headset, the place where you're going to sell your copies because people are talking about it, and it's getting advertised and all that. But if this goes off the way it seems like it's going to go off, and it's,
it's going to go off, Dave.
This is I can see developers looking at this already and being like, okay, yeah, I'm developing for that thing. That's what I want to develop for. That's what we're focused on. Sure. Yeah, so just like that's exciting, and I think there's going to be a lot on the horizon we don't know about yet.
Horizon,
just because this info
was that with a
yeah.
Beat you.
Yeah.
I beat you and stuff. The last thing that Sony kind of drove home during this summit was that they want to lower the barrier for developers to make PSVR 2 games, and I think that's, I think it'd be easy to ignore that as just like as a big duh, right? As a duh statement. But the fact is it's been hard for developers to make PSVR 1 games. Like they
every gen has been hard for developers to some degree. PS3 was extremely hard. Had a 2-year like porting cycle turnaround or something. That was a big selling point of PS4 was, hey, let's make this easier for developers. Right. Let's also bring in a bunch of indie support. That wasn't with VR in mind. As amazing as that wasn't. This is the first gen. This begins now, where this is going to be just the first gen where developers get the resources they need to actually build good VR games from the ground up more easily.
Yeah, it's just there were so many hurdles for PSVR 1, and so many between the quality control and the certification process and all that stuff. People kept asking, why are we getting all these crappy games if Sony's got everything on lockdown? They don't have the quality on lockdown. They had they had to make sure that everything was hitting a certain frames per second, that there were comfort settings available for people who needed them, and all this other stuff. And it seems like there were silly things getting in the way of people passing certification. And this, to me, means that Sony is like realizing that there's some stupid things that are getting in the way of these games being made, and so and maybe that they had to take a look at the certification process and maybe dial it back a little bit. That would be a smart thing. I mean,
I think it's almost like inherent to dial it back because a lot of it was about hitting frame rates and not dropping frames. Right. And like we've heard from developers where they drop a frame in a black loading screen, and Sony would say, "Nope, you dropped the frame. Sorry." Right. And so I think with just the increased power of the PlayStation 5, a lot of indie developers aren't going to be pushing it to its maximum limits anytime soon. The big AAA stuff will, but that'll go through their own internal processes. But like in terms of indies submitting stuff, I think the PS5 is just going to make it easier to hit a frame rate, than the PS4 did.
Yeah.
And so I think that will be a lot less of an issue in terms of like optimizing stuff and making sure it runs properly.
Guys, that was a lot of PlayStation VR2 information. And
90 minutes of it, Jesus.
Yeah, hopefully it was satisfying to hang out and listen to. I mean, there was so much stuff that we just couldn't fit in a 4-minute breaking news report. It was like 5 a.m. when I published that thing, and it was just like, let's get the most that I can out there, and then we'll revisit this today in this format. So it was it was awesome doing this and like hanging out with AJ and Dave and doing all this stuff, and being able to like just really get our opinions out there and the extra information. But the show's not over because it's time for PSVR 20 questions.
Oh, baby.
That's right. And if it's
I believe because I missed Monday.
Oh yeah.
It was a great episode, by the way, guys. I watched the whole thing after work and stuff. And
oh, cool. So you actually heard what we were saying.
Yes, I did. But yeah, so it is my question. Brian, I am ready.
Nice.
You are, sir.
Guys, everybody in the chat, if you haven't played this game before, Dave and I have 20 yes or no questions to guess the PSVR game that AJ is thinking of, and I think I need to put the timer from Timertopia.
Hey, he got it this time.
I did
on the first try.
Yeah, let's get this timer up and running. There we go. Timer's going. Does it have aim support?
No.
Okay.
Does it have dual shock support?
Yes.
Okay.
Does it also use the moves?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Dual shock
This is
support
always
and moves.
easy. Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Does this game have puzzles in it?
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
don't
Okay.
think so.
No puzzles.
No.
Is it sci-fi themed?
Sort of.
Okay, we'll say kinda sci-fi.
Kind of sci-fi.
Okay.
Do you shoot things in it?
Yes.
You do shoot things in it. Okay.
Is there full locomotion?
Is there full locomotion in this?
This must be an obscure one.
Yeah.
He hasn't played this recently. He has not played this recently.
I have played this recently.
Okay. Everybody go check
I don't
AJ's
think
Saturday Night
there's-
live streams.
I
Go up with that.
don't think that there's. I don't think that there's any full locomotion. Really, no. Not
Okay.
traditional full locomotion. No.
Is it? Do you teleport?
There's teleportation.
Okay. Brian?
Yeah, I'm thinking here. I'm making sure I got my notes. Would you consider this a narrative-driven game?
Part of it.
Part of it.
Yo, just Dave, let me let you in on what I'm thinking here. This is
Sure.
sounding like Blood and Truth.
Dual shock supported.
Yep, move support.
Move supported.
Oh no,
Some
Now, keep
part
in
of-
mind.
it's not
keep in
kind of
mind,
sci-fi at
I've
all, though, is it? So,
done-
It's not, there's no sci-fi at all, and it's
No
also
sci-fi.
not just narrative in some parts. It's narrative. The whole.
I've
thing
also
is-
done Blood and Truth before.
okay.
Let's see. Narrative in some parts. You do shoot things. It's kind of
Brian,
sci-fi.
are you keeping track of numbers?
No, that's
I am.
your job.
I am. No, I'm keeping track. This
you are-
next
where are
one
we
is
at?
next one's number 10.
Dave's like,
It's-
this is
I
this
took
is
a day
number
off.
3.
Yeah, no. I'm pretty sure the next one's number 10.
Okay.
Let's see. Does it have a realistic art style?
Part of it, yeah.
Part of it.
Part of it.
You keep saying part of it. I think. Okay,
Is it
Brian.
I think we have PSVR Worlds kind of thing or HeroCade,
I'm
something like
thinking
that.
it's got to be a compilation of games.
AJ, is
So
this a
ask that.
compilation of games?
It is a compilation.
Yeah,
That's
wow,
11.
okay.
Okay.
Cool. Well, if it's partially sci-fi, I would say not HeroCade because I can't think of a strong candidate for a sci-fi game there.
There's a Galaga game in there that's terrible.
Oh, that's the worst thing. Oh, but that's so bad. That shouldn't even count. But I mean,
But part of
but
it's sci-fi.
Scavenger's Odyssey is well. Let's
That's
ask
true.
this: does this game involve luge?
Street
Game-
Luge. She's like,
Does involve luge a little bit.
Oh, a little. There's one part of this game involves luge.
oh my
One
god.
part of it
Does
does.
this game involve a danger ball?
All right, let's just say
One
it.
part of this game involves the danger ball.
Is it PlayStation VR Worlds?
It is
Oh, yeah.
PlayStation VR Worlds. Congratulations. Good
That
job,
was
guys.
like
Good job,
in,
chat.
that was like in record time, I think.
It was pretty
It was
good.
nice.
Yeah, that was
nice.
I like
I
that.
didn't want to
Work,
give it away
Brian.
too much.
Good work, Brian.
What was the
Good.
wait? What was the turning point? Where did we decide? Because he kept saying
Because
partially.
he started saying
Yeah,
part of it.
I was
part of
hoping
it.
that was enough. I was hoping that it was enough because I can't say yes or no. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, good call, good call. All right, listen, we want to thank a whole lot of people who helped put this show together. Well, that would be the three of us. No. We also want to thank Miles Dyer, who runs our Instagram account. We want to thank Jay Meow, who is getting our website up and running, and also making sure that this thing ends up on Spotify and other streaming services out there. Also want to thank all of the moderators who are doing a kick-ass job keeping everyone under control, not just here, but also our Discord. So make sure you also join our Discord. The link is in the description. That's where this conversation happens 24/7. That's where I hang out. I don't know what you guys have been up to, but that's where I hang out. Good place to get some multiplayer meetups together. All sorts of good stuff happening over there. And don't forget, we want to thank SciFiGamecatHenry. If you've ever seen a show of ours with no timestamps, it means he was sleeping, because he's the one who adds timestamps to this hours after it's over. So thank you very, very much, SciFiGamecatHenry, and all the other people that I forgot to thank. Dave?
Did you talk about Spotify?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mentioned when I said Jay Meow. Yeah.
Yeah,
Listen
Jim.
on
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely. But also, if you don't already, make sure you subscribe to Dave over at Dave Station VR. Subscribe to AJ over at PSVR Underground. Everybody who donated in the chat, you're all awesome. Thank you, everybody who contributed, everybody who helps us out on Patreon, and of course, all of you guys who sat back, watched the show, didn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there. The numbers don't lie. We love you just as much. I think it's time to cue the cat.
You the cat and stuff, Brian, because I want to say goodbye and see you guys Friday. We got a great show. We're going to be talking all about Aftershocks, Saints and Sinners Aftershocks, and a whole lot more on Friday. See you guys there. Have a wonderful rest of the night. Thank you to PSVR Zest. What's up, our favorite PSVR lime in the house
It's so
tonight.
citrusy.
Steve, he's got so much buoyancy, Brian.
I got two lambs in case one
Steve
breaks
Irie,
down.
People of the Pig, Flame Hat, Game Cat, Decepticon, GG, Homid, Gabriel Double for the lights of Meow Game Cat, Meow Meow, Meow Meow, Meow Meow Meow, LC2552 beats the musical game cat.
I like that you took two takes.
The musical game.
I don't know, I was off key. Let me try that again.
Jay now says Orbs. I loved what. Hold on, what was it? Ian Stanbridge says our hive mind is incredible. I couldn't agree more, Ian. Group think is the way. That's always the way, right? That's how always ends the best. Importon, hello. He says, "Are you guys from Pennsylvania?"
None of us are from Pennsylvania.
No. Or Seek says, let's see, Dimash, Smash, the game cat, stay lit, home and G, the fastest Scotsman alive, said PlayStation VR World as well. Nice, he is fast. Super Galaxy Godstar, David, so good to hear about your dad, man. So glad he is out. Everybody,
Yes.
best wishes to you, man. We're praying for you, hanging in there for you. Good, what a fighter, just like his son. Making him proud, dude. Making him proud.
Guys, we need to end this with a donation from Delirium Drew VR with a $5 tip. Says, great news, great day. Can't wait for next year. Thanks for breaking the news, Brian.
I
Thank you so much,
say
sir.
we have a new rule. If you change your name to the musical game cat, we have to sing every tip in that voice AJ just did. Like, great news, great day. Can't wait for next year.
Only for holding hands while we sing it.
I mean, can you sing it
We
like
can kumbaya. We can kumbaya.
Oh, guys,
No,
please,
no,
can we make it a
no.
metal song instead?
AJ can make it.
Breaking news. Thanks for breaking the news, Brian. Raising hands.